Morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. So during today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the Phonebar appointments list. So during this session, we'll be looking just at the appointments list, and we'll have a brief look at the help centre as well, just to remind you where you can get all the help and support that you need with step-by-step instructions. So the Phonebar appointments list will enable you to access your EMIS appointments directly through the Phonebar using the appointment list icon. And the appointments list can be accessed when the Phonebar is both in its minimized and its maximized states. In order to expand the Phonebar, once it's downloaded on your PC, there'll be a keypad icon, and clicking on the keypad will then maximize the Phonebar, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen here. And once you're logged into your clinical database, you can then access the appointments list either through the maximized or the minimized Phonebar there. You can also access the active patient options whenever you're connected to the clinical database. So what I'm going to do now is actually step out of this presentation, and I'm going to show you the Phonebar on my desktop. So this is my desktop screen. I've actually already logged into the Phonebar this morning. So you can see in my taskbar, I've got the Surgery Connect logo with a little green dot in there to indicate that I'm currently in my available status. So to bring that back up on the screen, as I've got it hidden, I can just click on the icon and it will then appear back on my screen here. Now, I have already logged into our EMIS training database this morning. At the moment, the Phonebar is only available for EMIS customers. However, we are working with System 1 to get a version of the Phonebar available for System 1 users as well. We're hoping to get that all up and running later on this year, but we'll keep you informed with how we're getting on with the Phonebar for System 1 there. In order to access the appointments list, I do need to have my clinical database open and unlocked. So I am logged in to the clinical database at the moment, but I'm now just going to unlock that by popping in my password on the lock screen. And that will then bring up, obviously, my clinical database. Now, because we're in Teams, it's a bit funny about me sharing all of my screen and the Phonebar. So I'm just going to split my screen here so that you can see both the Phonebar and our EMIS test database. On yours, it will just appear in front of your clinical database. Obviously, you don't need to split your screen. Now that I have the clinical database open, I can click on the appointment list icon in either the minimized or the maximized Phonebar, and that will then give me access to my appointments list. So if you have a list allocated to you, it will recognize your clinical database login and automatically bring any list up for today for you. You can, however, change the list up at the top here. So where you've got the name of the list that you're currently working through, there's a drop down and you can select any of the other lists that are available within your practice. You can also change the date on these, so you can go forward 60 days and check for any future appointments within your lists. Within the appointment list applet here, there is the option to also refresh this list. It will refresh automatically every 30 seconds. So if any new appointments are scheduled during the day, it will update those as you come through. And there is also the option to send out a bulk SMS to all of the patients in the list so that you can warn them that their appointment is due today. Within the list, you will see obviously the name of the patient and also the time of the appointment. You've also got the patient's date of birth there so that you can do a DPA check if you're calling out to them. In order to open the patient's clinical record, all you need to do is to click on the name in their appointments list. So you don't need to then search for them manually within EMIS or go in via your EMIS appointments list. You can access the patient's details directly from the appointments list on the Phonebar. So that's now opened up Bridget Jones as our active patient here. And now any notes that I put on will go directly onto Bridget's clinical records there. Now that I've got the patient open here, I can also use the contact options, which will give you the various communication methods available for that particular patient. You might notice that some of these are grayed out in certain circumstances. So if you are using a desk phone, it's not going to let you initiate a video call because you need to do that via the soft phone on the Phonebar. So you might see that the video link here would be grayed out then if you're using your desk phone. Also, if a patient doesn't have a mobile number on their clinical record, it won't allow you to send text to them, as that will only go out to a mobile number. You can call the patient from with any number that's on their clinical record. And if you hover over any of the contact icons in the appointments list, it will show you the alternative numbers that are available on that particular patient's clinical record. So we can see here that Bridget's got her mobile number and also a landline number. There's also the option here for me to type in an extra number. So if the patient's on a temporary number for the day, then you can type that number in just to make that one call to them there. As soon as you type in a number, you'll have the little call icon, and you can then just click on that to begin the call to that particular number. If the number's already in the clinical record, just clicking on the number will begin the call to that particular number there. The other icons that we have available here are to text the patient. So you can send out SMSs on Surgery Connect. Just be aware that the text through the phone bar and through the appointments list are chargeable. Currently, as we're recording, it's 1.99 pence per text. So do check with your practice management team. And if you're using another system to send out text messages, you may be carrying on using that system rather than sending text through the phone bar. However, if you click on the little envelope here, that will allow you to go in to send out a text message to the patient as well. There is the facility to set up templates on the system, and that will also bring in the patient's details to the message. So we've set up some templates on our training database here, and we've got one that will send out the link for coronavirus information updates. That will then also bring in the patient's details, and then you can just send that text directly through the appointments list here. It also gives you the option to file that directly into the patient's clinical record. So if you click on the file message, it will put a note into the consultation notes so that everybody then that can access those details can see that that text was sent out there. Our next icon in the contact options here is to send out a photo request. Again, that might be something that you're using another service for at the moment. The text messages to send out a photo request and for a video call are free of charge though, so you can use these through Surgery Connect. Clicking on the photo request will allow you to send it to either a mobile number, as you can see from the clinical record, or I could type in an email address here. So if the patient's on a tablet and doesn't have a calls package but does have Wi-Fi, you can send it to their email address so that they can use the camera on their tablet then to take that photograph as well if they need to. When you send out a photo request, it will pick up usually the mobile number or the email address then that you've typed in. You can also specify who that notification is coming back to when that photograph is returned. So normally it will default to the person that's doing the request, but if your reception team need to send out the request for a photograph, they can send the photo request and then actually specify the clinician as the person who will be notified when that photograph is returned. There is some standard information about taking photographs, but you can also add in extra information to the message body here. And then when you send that request, it will send out either a text or an email with a link in. And when the patient clicks on the link, they can either attach a photograph that they've already taken, or they can take a new one there and then, and that will then be sent into the practice and you'll be notified when that photograph comes back in. In the slide pack, I've put in a slide there that shows you the notification on the screen as well. So it's normally down in the bottom right hand corner and it will notify you then that that photograph has been returned. You can view the photograph from the notification, or you can do it through the contact history. So we've got our normal video call icon here where you can send out the link to begin a video call with the patient on their mobile phone or again via an email address. And the last icon here is the contact history for that particular patient. I'm going to swap to Vernon Dursley's clinical record here. So we can see now that that's swapped over automatically. And if I clicked on his contact options here on the contact history, it will then bring up all the various communication methods that we've had with Mr. Dursley that haven't currently been filed into the patient's clinical record. So here we can see that we've got various different communications. So we've got some calls, and because it's my call, I can actually access the call recording directly through the patient's contact history here. As a photograph, I can view the photograph from here, and it will then open up in a pop-up so that you can see the image on your screen. There's also a text message that's been sent out here, and I can see that that's been delivered. So I could now add that into the patient's clinical record as well. To add anything into the clinical record, just click on the box at the end that says select, and you can even select multiple different types of communications. When you click on File to Patient Record, that will then add a note into the patient's clinical record, and you can see these notes through the consultation record. So if I actually file that into the clinical record, they will then disappear from the communications list. If it's something that you don't need to file and you just want to tidy up, you can also delete those. As soon as you filed it, though, it will then tell you that that current patient's medical record has just been updated. So you can then click to reload in EMIS, and it will have the latest consultation notes then within there. So if I now go into the consultations, we can then see here that we have the notes from the action that I've taken today. So it's put today's date on there to file it under today's date when it was all filed. I can see the text here that we sent out. So that was a prescription ready text that we'd sent out via our templates. And then I've also got the image here, as well as the call recordings for the calls. Please do remember that if you do file anything into a patient's clinical record using Surgery Connect, then your clinical database then becomes the data controller. So anybody that can access those clinical records would have access then to the details of any calls that you file to the clinical record. They'd be able to see the context of the text messages, or if you've requested a photograph from a patient and they've sent one in and you've attached that, they would also be able to see that image within the patient's clinical record. Once you've completed an appointment, it will only show future appointments, and we are aware at the moment that if a patient isn't checked in and their appointment slot passes and EMIS marks it as did not arrive, the appointment will disappear from this appointments list on the Phonebar. You'll still have a complete list, obviously, within EMIS until that is actioned on EMIS itself. But you can just click on the actioned button here, and it will then cross that out so you can keep a track of where you're up to in the appointments list on the Phonebar itself. It doesn't complete your consultation, though, so you do need to make sure that you do that yourself within EMIS or your clinical database as you would do normally. Now, there is also the Help Centre. So if you click on the little question mark on the Phonebar, it will open up our Help Centre. It does go in immediately into the Phonebar help pages. This is constantly evolving, our Help Centre, so there is always new articles being added, and we're adapting current articles as well. So you might see the articles change around, but you can search at the top here for any of the articles within our help pages. So for example, if you're looking for the SMS charging information, you can just search in SMS charging, and it will then bring up the SMS help article so that you can see which texts are free and which ones are chargeable. There's also in here an article on how to set up the SMS templates, and if you click onto that, again, it will take you through step-by-step instructions on how to create the text templates for your particular surgery.